Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're taking a look at a concept you've probably heard tossed around a million times, in boardrooms, in relationships, maybe even in your favorite self-improvement circles. We're getting right to the core of how to actually be self-aware. But look, we're not just going to treat it like some trendy buzzword today. We're going to really dive in and demystify the mechanics of true self-awareness. We'll be looking at the hard data, the psychology behind it, and the actual, practical steps you can take to cultivate it in your everyday life. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so to kick things off, let's ask a pretty simple but honestly kind of uncomfortable question. Are you as self-aware as you think you are? Seriously, take a quick second and really think about that. I mean, most of us would immediately just nod our heads, right? We're like, yeah, for sure. We think we know our values, what triggers us, our little quirks, and exactly how we impact the people around us. But you might want to brace yourself, because the scientific research paints a very, very different and honestly kind of shocking picture.
Just take a look at this number for a second, 10 to 15%. There was this massive 4-year research study led by organizational psychologist Tasha Eurich. Nearly 5,000 subjects published in the Harvard Business Review, the whole shebang. And they found that while pretty much everyone believes they're self-aware, in reality, only 10 to 15% actually are. I mean, wow! That means basically 85 to 90% of us are just walking through life with these massive emotional and psychological blind spots. And here's the kicker. The study found that just getting older, having more life experience, or gaining professional expertise, it doesn't automatically help. Actually, it's kind of the opposite. As leaders get more experienced and powerful, their self-awareness often gets less accurate, mainly because they just stop looking for evidence that contradicts their own self-image.
Now, what's truly fascinating about this research is how it draws a hard line between two totally fundamentally different and often completely unlinked ways that we know ourselves. First, you've got internal self-awareness. This is basically how clearly you see your own values, your passions, your aspirations, and your immediate reactions. But then, on the flip side, there's external self-awareness, which is understanding exactly how other people view you. Now, logically, you'd probably think, well, if I know myself really well on the inside, I definitely know how I come off to others, right? Nope. The researchers found virtually zero relationship between the two. They are completely, literally separate skill sets.
So based on how those two types of awareness interact, the researchers mapped out 4 distinct profiles. Let's walk through this matrix, and as we do, I really want you to be totally honest with yourself and see which category you might fall into right now. All right, first up, the seekers. They're low in both internal and external awareness. They usually feel pretty stuck, they don't really know what they stand for, and they definitely don't know how others perceive them. Next, we have the pleasers. These folks are low on internal, but high on external awareness. They can get so obsessively focused on appearing a certain way to please everybody else that they completely lose sight of what actually fulfills them. Third are the introspectors. High internal, low external. They absolutely know who they are, but they don't challenge their own views, and they definitely don't seek feedback to find their blind spots. And finally, the aware category. High in both. They know exactly what they want, but they also actively seek out and genuinely value other people's perspectives. So, which one are you?
Now, if you're thinking, okay, maybe my internal awareness is a bit low, your first instinct might just be to spend way more time looking inward, right? But hold on a second. Experts in human psychology actually warn us against a huge trap called the self-absorption paradox. You see, chronic self-focus, just staring inward and overanalyzing every little detail without a solid framework, it can actually totally backfire. It traps you in this loop where you can't shift out of that internal state to respond to the real world. So instead of gaining all this deep, profound insight, this kind of endless navel-gazing actually just generates more anxiety, more depression, and ultimately a poorer sense of well-being.
So the really crucial takeaway here is that the way you introspect matters immensely. And honestly, it often just boils down to a tiny, tiny shift in your vocabulary. We fall into what's called the introspection trap when we constantly ask why. Like, why did I just fly off the handle? Or, why don't I like this person? The research shows that asking why almost instantly triggers our defensive mode. We just spiral into shame, or we start inventing all these rationalizations that feel super true in the moment, but really aren't. So what's the fix? Shift to asking what? What was I feeling in that exact moment? Or, what are the situations that consistently make me feel terrible? And what do they have in common? Asking what keeps us objective, you know? It creates this actionable, healthy curiosity and empowers us to actually do something about it.
And this perfectly brings us to one of the biggest hurdles in getting objective self-awareness, something psychologists call the fundamental attribution error. Look, we all build up emotional armor in childhood to protect ourselves. It's totally natural. But in adulthood, this defense mechanism tricks us into assigning external reasons for our own flaws while blaming internal motives for other people's flaws. Let me give you an example. Say you're late for work. You tell yourself, oh, it's just because the trains are completely unreliable today. But if your coworker walks in late, you instantly assume, wow, they have terrible time management skills and absolutely no respect for anyone else's time. See what happened there? We judge ourselves by our circumstances, but we judge everyone else by their character. Breaking this specific habit is absolutely essential for true self-awareness.
So how do we actually fix this? All of these concepts build into something called the pause method. It's this incredibly concrete therapeutic protocol you can use to structure your self-observation so you don't end up stuck in that anxious rumination rut we talked about earlier. Here's how it works. First, prepare. You need to set up your mental space. Literally put your phone on airplane mode, take 3 really slow breaths, and just signal to your nervous system, hey, it's safe to be vulnerable right now. Next is ask. Start with broad, open questions. Remember, we want those what questions, definitely not those judgmental why questions. And finally, understand. This means recognizing your own mental resistance. Check this out. If you instantly find a super easy answer, or if your brain suddenly wants to jump to a totally different topic, that is literally your brain trying to protect you from an uncomfortable truth. Catching that is huge.
Of course, turning a single exercise into an actual lifestyle requires consistency, right? Psychologist Nick Wignall emphasizes that self-awareness is not some magical, mystical trait you're just born with. It's absolutely a skill that you have to actively cultivate. And he outlines 5 daily habits to help you do just that. Number 1, listen more than you talk. Practice managing your own internal chatter during a conversation so you can actually truly hear the other person. Number 2, be curious about your own mind. Try replacing that harsh inner critic with just gentle, objective observation. Number 3, actively look for your emotional blind spots. A classic example is masking your real anger by just calling it stress. Number 4, ask for honest feedback. And, this is the hard part, fight the urge to get defensive the second you hear it. And finally, number 5, regularly reflect on your values to make absolutely sure you aren't just chasing fake goals to impress other people.
Now, a massive, massive part of this toolkit is what's known as the somatic connection. Here's the thing, your body often knows things way, way before your conscious mind even catches up. I actually want to invite you to do this with me right now. Just pause and tune into your own body for a second. Are your shoulders kind of creeping up by your ears? Is your jaw tightly clenched? How about your breathing? Is it shallow? Emotions literally live in our physical experience. A tight chest before a big meeting, or feeling this weird heaviness in your legs. That is incredibly valuable data. When you start mapping these physical sensations to your emotional states, it pulls this entire practice out of the realm of just theoretical ideas and makes it deeply, deeply experiential.
As you practice all of this consistently, you'll start to discover that there are actually profound depths to this journey. Pretty much everything we've talked about so far belongs to level 1, psychological self-awareness. That's the incredibly important realm of healing your core wounds, understanding your triggers, and fixing your relationships. But there is a deeper, almost spiritual tier, which is level 2. This involves observing the self entirely. It's this mind-blowing realization that the separate me you constantly worry about, constantly try to protect, it's often just a conditioned thought pattern. When you hit this level, you realize that identifying way too strongly with this constructed ego is actually the very root of your suffering. So the next time you find yourself caught in one of those defensive loops, or you're spinning your wheels in anxiety, or you just feel completely crippled by some limiting belief, I want you to ask yourself this incredibly powerful foundational question that therapists use. Who would I be if I stopped telling myself this story? Because true self-awareness isn't about fixing who you are, like you're broken. It's about deeply understanding who you are and realizing you have the absolute power to choose your path forward. So think about it. What stories are you holding onto right now, and what incredible things might happen for you if you finally decided to let them go?